Hi, it's Cameron Reynolds, and there's a lot of work going on. There's robbing with the bees, there's feeding that we need to do on some late splits. I want to go through 4 colonies and show you what that looks like. But one thing real quick, people have been asking me about this new Apis tactical valve, and one of the nice things about it is I can be backing this thing up and I can look over like this and I can still see out of this valve. For a fencing valve, this has got the best visibility that I've ever seen, and it's really handy in the truck or in a forklift. Now down here, I wanted to show you this really quick, and disregard the mess. We're changing everything to 4-way pallets, but you're gonna see some robbing activity. Look at this back in here. These bees, there's no entrance here at the lid. There's a little gap where the beekeeper didn't quite get it where he was supposed to, and we've been feeding some syrup because these colonies need it, and this is one of the weakest ones in the yard. And they're getting a little bit of light robbing. You can see a little activity, and there's some down here fighting. It's pretty light robbing, but it does really matter. So I put this little shim right here to kind of reduce the entrance down. I probably need to go a little bit further, but it's hard to go much more because it's so stinking hot. And so it's a little bit tricky using 4-way pallets. So as you can see, we've rearranged a lot of the things in the yard. We're trying to really make it now to where everything can be utilized around our forklift. And also, we're trying to get all the bees out of here. Our kids have a lot of projects they want to do. We want them to be able to enjoy the yard while they're still kids. And so the bees are pretty much all just going to out yards now. We have plenty of them, and that's what we're doing. So you can see a little bit of light bearding. These are some bigger colonies, but they need feed. At least they did last time I looked at them. I fed them 3.5 to 4 gallons apiece since I put their second boxes on them. And you'll look over here on this side, and there's still a little bit of robbing over here. That's half the reason the bees are more aggressive. And it's hot, and there's not a lot to do. It is later in the evening, but they look like that all day long, if not even more. So let's get into these colonies, and I want to show you what I'm looking for, and then if we need to, we're going to feed with what's on the back of my truck. All right. Whew. It is humid. So the first thing I'm going to do, typically I'll just go to the second box. We have some, look at all those bees. I really like the shims personally. It's not a problem getting buildup underneath these most of the year. About 2 months or so out of the year when we actually have a honey flow, which this year wasn't that great, you can get some buildup in there. But if you have enough supers, it really doesn't get into the lid that much. But so we have some small hive beetle traps over here. Hopefully it's doing its job and eliminating a few of them. I found a few of those traps last year, just killed tons of them. And we have our 2-gallon frame feeders with a little bit of straw in there. Oh wow, they've really drawn this out. So these are mostly boxes of old comb with some foundation. They're drawing this out. Really nice. So just some old frames that I put some new foundation into, trying to reuse them as much as we can. And we've got more comb being drawn. There's a few eggs down in there. This is fairly light. That's got some weight into it. And I just want to, mainly when I'm doing inspections on big colonies, it's robbing season. We can't take forever doing this. And so I want to see, do we have a queen? Does the brood pattern look good? Is there enough food? And ideally, whenever you see brood like this, you should also see food like this. And on a strong double deep colony, or really anything over 10 frames of bees, needs to have a minimum of 3 deep frames worth of food. At least 21 pounds, 25 would be better, and that's the minimum for a big colony. So ideally, when you pick up these second deep boxes, you should be going when you pick them up. It really helps the colony stay strong and keeps them from being a target later in the season. So I'm just seeing beautiful larvae. I mean, this is a very new comb right here. And when the honey flows over, those splits or the honey production colonies, break them down, hurry up and get that honey off of there, and then put some well-coated, it's more important now than ever that these are really well-coated with good wax, and then feed. This one looks pretty good, but it still needs a little bit more weight. Look at that, it's just bees already trying to rob this out. It's just that fast. I'm gonna rotate this around so that the undrawn side is more towards the inside. And gonna dump those bees right there at the entrance. I'm sure they're gonna love that. And I don't really need to see anything else right there. Whoops, gotta get that back in. All right. Now I'm gonna, most of the time though, I don't just do the lid. I'm going right here so I can feel the weight. This is not heavy enough. I already know that right there. And I can look up underneath. Oh, this is the one with those new 21st B or something like that frames, and they're plastic. It's a new experience for me. This one was started later. I basically had a queen, a frame of brood, and I shook about 3 frames or so worth of bees, so they're behind. And one of the things that I've noticed, well, besides that, these are 4.9 millimeters, so if you're wanting that small cell foundation, this is the stuff. So you can see where the queen has started laying in here, and they're drawing that out. There's not a lot of food above this brood at all, and these are heavier frames, so if I already feel like the box is light, they need 2 gallons of feed, no question. And they seem to be drawing most of this out pretty well. Let me show you something with these frames. You can see there's a little bit of warpage on some of these. That one's bowing a little bit. But they seem to draw them out good. That's one thing. The bottom bars are a lot wider than some of them, like all of them that I've ever seen. The bees seem to pass through them just fine. They don't so far seem to be burning them up. I just wonder in a honey flow if they're going to connect those bottoms of those bottom bars a lot more. They haven't drawn this out a whole lot. Looks like there's about maybe 2 frames drawn up in there. So we're gonna have to feed this one 2 gallons without question. And I really want to put some of the oxalic acid glycerin strips in here very soon. So we'll probably move them first and then do that afterwards. All right, same thing with this one. We're gonna go down to this second box right here. You know, these boxes have been on here just for a couple of weeks at the most. You know, probably about 2 weeks tops. I'm not even sure they're that old. They've been drawing pretty well. Leave me alone, bee, go away. And that's why they're not glued down very much. Yeah, that's a little too light. There's some weight in there. But what I like to do now is look up underneath here. Okay, that's really nice. Whew, get the smoke away from me. So we have partially drawn right there. You guys probably can't see it as good as I can. So they're drawing that one out really good. They're drawing this one, just a queen cup. And, you know, they're just drawing that out. So I can see a lot from the bottom, and I can see some robbing going on. Get out of here. No robbers allowed. And this is the main brood chamber because this is where they started from. And so if I want to see something, I can more likely see it down here because they haven't really established too much up there. Either one really works. You could really just do the top box. I really want to go down to this brood chamber. All right, that's what I want to see this time of the year. We have a queen cup down here, nothing in it. I see young larvae, good brood pattern, and I see a lot more young brood. And you know, I see some food down into here. That's good. Our feeding's getting down there in the brood nest, but we still need more home drawing. There's more foundation that needs to get drawn out. And a lot of that is going to be eaten up here in the next couple of days because there's just nothing coming in. Nothing at all. So we need to keep them fed and get this all drawn and get that weight up into here. I want to be able to, when I pick up this box, that it's actually real effort. Okay. This one we're going to be a lot quicker on. I've already popped this one today, so super easy to get into. Very light. I've already seen good brood, just as good as that last one. And they haven't drawn this one out, but they're starting it. They're partially drawn that one out. Okay, let's get some food on these girls. You know, so we don't have to be really fast. We don't have to be slow with our inspections. We don't have to see a lot. I want to see a brood pattern. I want to know that I have a queen. I want to see things going forward. Drawing foundation well is always an excellent sign of colony health, because only good bees draw combs well. So now what we're going to do, and it's best to do this in the evening during robbing season, because it gives them all night to kind of get rid of a lot of it and also prep for the defense on the next day. If we are going to pull these lids back and smoke down in there. The hay is not necessary, or the straw, but it does tremendously help newer colonies with drowning. If you don't want any to drown, it really helps a lot. You're still going to have some bees die in there. You know what? There's 500 to 1,000 bees on a colony this size dying every day. They might die out trying to get propolis in the hive. They may die just running out of energy in your feeder. It's just part of it. So if you see 100 dead bees, is it really that big of a deal, or is it normal? We just don't see it. So I don't have a problem with it, but the straw does really help. So I'm going to smoke this real good. Turn that baby on. I got this from Commercial Bee Supply. It's a little expensive, but it is really nice. And when you're working by yourself, or even if you have Laurel with you, it's really handy. It's like having another person in the yard. So just choke it a little bit. Got a nice Honda motor, makes it a lot easier. I've already opened up the IBC tote. We don't have much syrup in there, about 80 gallons right now. So if you come over here, you can see where this is spinning. There must be a little bit of a scent of stuff coming out of there. But I like to get a little bit faster than that. It recycles some of the pressure back. That right there is good. All right. And the nice thing about having this long wand on the end of here is I can reach all 4 of these feeders from one spot. And healthy bees will climb out of that no problem. So that straw really helps them, have more things to get a foothold on. And it's best not to slosh syrup in between on the outside if possible. It really helps with robbing. Feeding in the evening is also a tremendous help, but ultimately strong colonies is the best thing for it. A strong defense is really good. Fill it up. Oh yeah, but you got to think about that. Even if this is 2 gallons and it's not quite 2 gallons, I got straw and stuff in there. This is 1 to 1. By the time the bees dehydrate this down to honey thickness, and then they consume what energy was required to store it and collect it and all that stuff and what they need for their day, because there's nothing coming in really from nature. I mean, goodness, this is probably a quart and change of honey thick feed. So it's not a whole lot of actual weight that we're adding. We're probably adding 3 to 4 pounds of honey weight when we're feeding this, especially if we're drawing wax. And that's where this will be the 3rd time they've been fed in the last 10 to 14 days. And we're gonna probably come back in a few more days and feed them again and just get that weight up to where that box is heavy and all that foundation is completely drawn. So now we're just gonna smoke them, get them out of the way, get those robbing bees out of the way. Oh, come on now. And there we go. So this is what we're doing just about with everything right now. We're getting hundreds and hundreds of new combs drawn. Some people say feeding bees sugar is bad for them. These colonies would die without that. Some of these were late swarms, some of them were splits, but some of them were swarms that I caught that just would not survive without feeding them, period. And not only are they going to survive, they're going to thrive because of this feeding. Sugar is not as good as nectar is. We'll all admit that. There's elements in nectar that sugar doesn't have in it, but by and large, nectar and honey is just energy source. It's fuel for the hive, and sugar is mostly that. It's just fuel. And there's some additives that we can put in there. Sometimes we'll put some Apis biologics in there or whatever, and that can help a lot. But ultimately, it's a fuel source, and it does cause the bees to be more hygienic. It does have a cleansing effect as long as there's glucose oxidase in there. Hydrogen peroxide will still be created, so that's very beneficial. And ultimately, hey, hot dogs are probably not the best food for my kids, but they sure enjoy having them. I don't feed it to them every day. Most of the year, they're getting better homemade stuff. Laurel's an awesome cook. However, sometimes they get a hot dog. You know, they get all their spring nectar that comes in, and then they get to keep some of the honey, and then in the fall they get to keep all the honey. This sugar is not a problem. The sugar is not the reason that the bees are dying. A lot of the reason bees are dying is new problems and also poor beekeeping. So with this YouTube channel, we try to help with that a little bit. And one last tip before we go, because we just don't stop. Don't trip over that, Laurel. Turn this thing off, that's tip number one. It's annoying. The other thing is, when we made this syrup right here, I almost filled it up all the way. And I will keep it like this for a few weeks, because what we'll do is just feed straight sugar syrup to the colonies, because you come back to those colonies tomorrow morning, there will not be a drop of syrup in those things. It is impressive how quickly they'll take that down. I have seen them take it down in 8 hours, no problem this time of the year. Good strong colonies, and these aren't even the biggest colonies we have, so they'll just chug that down very quickly. If you're wanting a more stimulating effect, a bucket feeder would be way better, or a jar feeder. You know, slowly trickle it into the hive where it regulates how much they can pull in. The frame feeder, they can just pull it in so fast. I'm busy. I got a lot to do. I'm not Bob Benny with a lot of people helping me out that can, you know, do things perfectly. So these frame feeders are great. I really like them, and I don't have to worry about raccoons yanking the buckets off of my hives, which they have done that in the past. But then what about the rest of this syrup in here? So I feed it all straight sugar syrup, and then once we are like, okay, we're not going to probably feed for a handful of days. We don't want this to ferment because it's bad for our bees, and eventually it'll get so bad they won't take it. And so immediately after we're done feeding most of it in the first round, we'll put a product like Hive Alive in there, or something like that, which if you use the correct amount will preserve it for, in my experience, about 6 weeks or so. Every bit of a month, especially if it's like you do it in March or something where it's very cool. I've had it last over 2 months and be just fine. And so that's a tool that we use, because that sugar is not expensive. You don't want to waste any of that stuff, but if you're doing small batches, you can put it in the fridge, or heck, even freeze it. Just make sure you warm it up. Bees aren't like us. They don't like a really cold smoothie in the hive, brain freeze and all that kind of stuff. All right, enough goofing around. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.